I never take a cut. You're welcome to, perform there, use the space. The artists get 100% of the door and 100% of the merch. Okay. The reason I can do that is my budget for any given show is maybe I print up a dozen flyers, which is maybe a couple of bucks if they're black and white,
Right.
Maybe a little more if they're color.
Yeah.
And I buy a case of water.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with a man who can feel it in the air tonight.
What's up, Jay? It's your boy Mod.
What's up, buddy?
Is it a Phil Collins there?
Yep.
Genesis, Phil Collins.
Yeah.
Pulling them all out,
Oh, I love it. Great song.
So today we're shining the spotlight on someone who's been putting on for the local music scene for a while. He's a mastermind behind one of the raddest local venues, the Credit Union, a space that's given countless bands a place to share their art. He has not only hosted some great bands, but also featured many acts that we have graced this very podcast, actually. His dedication to the scene and his unwavering support for musicians and fans alike make him a vital part of what keeps our community thriving. Let's give a huge Metal Maniacs welcome to the one and only Nick Sondy.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you.
Hey, welcome to the show, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming over, man. Appreciate it. I know we're in the talks, and then we kind of got silent for a while, but sometimes we have so many we got so many things going on with this podcast. We're so far ahead that sometimes I just kind of throw the hook out there a little bit just to see who's interested, and then I'll reel you in, just to make sure that you're still.
Yeah, well,
on the
I'm
line.
like 8 minutes away, so it's not a big deal,
Yeah, I was peeping the messages. I saw you were like 4 months out or something for a band that you asked. I was like, dang.
Yeah,
for me, like I can't imagine 4 months down the road. I never plan anything like that really. So that's we're definitely throwing lines out there for a ways out. That's good.
Well, what I've been doing is I've been throwing bands a few dates of this month, and then if I got to talk to another band, I'll send a few dates out for that next band for the next month for a different band. That way I'm not waiting on this band to get back to me because it could be 5 to 7 to 12 days before I hear from them. And then I don't know what's going on with the podcast if I only give you 3 dates and then I got to give these same 3 dates to the next band. So I'm just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'll see what we got open. We'll schedule this band for sure.
Yeah.
And then when it comes down to it, we'll just fill those dates in between. I figure that's a lot easier. But, it's all a growing and learning process. But,
yeah, you don't want all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
There's going to be some changes. You're going to massage the lineup a little bit as it gets nearer to the time. And once you announce it, though, you want everything tight.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
So how are you guys doing today? I know, Nick, you we wake up to the TikTok ban, which didn't really affect us, but we just got to 1,000, so that was cool. So we just got to be able to put a link in our bio so they could actually go to our podcast and go live, which we wouldn't probably anyway, but it is what it is. It's just fucking TikTok. But I do feel sorry for those people who'd really make a living off it. And there's a lot of cool things that you could utilize the platform for. Like there's a lot of tools and things. So it's like one of those things. I know it's Chinese spyware, and I know a lot of people are like, whatever. But
well, what
isn't
spyware
culture
nowadays?
Right, exactly. I mean, Facebook has all your data. So if you're on Facebook, you're fucked anyway.
Yeah.
Google has all your data. They sell you shit even when you're sleeping.
For me, it's kind of like the lesser of two evils. Would I rather China have all my information to sabotage me, or my own backyard, Mark Zuckerberg and all them have my information? So I don't really know. I'm not on TikTok at all. I think it's just a platform that I don't really
I've
need.
I've never even seen TikTok.
But I know that we use it for the podcast, you primarily, and I see that we've had some success there here and there.
Yep.
So that sucks to have that kind of ripped away.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks I've been posting on there. We've been getting over a couple thousand views for each video and shit, so it's kind of like good for us, But
yeah, it's a huge platform, state of the art worldwide.
Right.
Some would argue better than all the others.
Yeah.
Now I guess the new ones are Reddit or
Red Note.
Red Note.
Something like that.
I've heard somebody say Red Note.
A lot of folks say is even better.
Okay.
And it's still Chinese, so I don't know why they went from one Chinese platform to another.
Right.
that's almost as big or bigger and supposedly better. I don't know. Maybe it's an improvement.
I think maybe they're ready to move off the TikTok thing because of the legal issues. So they had like a card up their sleeve or something. They're like, oh, we'll just roll out the red note then and go from there. So
I also think if the Chinese want your information, they're going to get it, whether you fucking want to give it to them. I mean, if you really want it, it's out there. What the fuck? Everybody's online. Everybody's,
I think,
has some kind of presence. So
I feel like maybe the U.S. was pissed that, they were getting it for free from TikTok, and now we could just turn around and sell the information to them instead.
It's
like,
you know what I mean? It's a little bit of that. I also heard some things too where it was more of these like Google and Facebook and these bigger conglomerations didn't like TikTok because TikTok was one of the biggest, fastest growing apps ever in history.
Right.
So everybody navigated towards there. And then all of a sudden, Instagram started seeing less activity on their platform and Facebook as well. So it was also one of those things where like, oh, well, we had the market cornered for so long, and all of a sudden here comes this giant TikTok thing. And then all these other platforms get TikTokified, all the short reels and the Insta. You know what I mean? They all start doing the same shit. So it's like they all kind of turn into the same thing. But hey, it is what it is, man. That
grow
is
and adapt and keep up. My only issue with TikTok, I mean, I would see maybe something. I never looked at the actual platform, but occasionally something would come across my Facebook or whatever, and it's like some of these clips are like 5 seconds long, and it's like, is your attention span that limited? Is that like,
it's curiosity.
I can't even get a sense of like, what is it? Or it's just like, it's so weird and foreign to me, it's challenging enough when someone is trying to play me music off of their phone.
Yeah.
That's just
check out my band.
Yeah. Oh, you never heard these guys? Well, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I'm not like a audio snob. It doesn't have to be like a $10,000 stereo system. But still,
same. I can't listen to music on my cell phone. It's the worst.
Yeah.
I can't even get an idea.
I wouldn't want anyone to listen to anything I did on their phone. I
like
mean, if you want to watch
phone
this
speaker or whatever.
I mean, if you want to watch this pod on it, I guess that's okay. But can you hook up your earbuds or something? Or
that's better.
Or something out of the speakers in the computer. I mean, no, you gotta get at least a desktop speaker set up or something. Or your best quality headphones.
That brings two points to mind. One is that shows the importance, and this kind of is just some advice for bands, creators, whatever. It shows the importance, and something that it's kicked me in the ass this morning even to think about, like owning your own presence online, so your own .com and like your own email list, because they can't take that away from you, right? Like as long as you pay your whatever GoDaddy and then you
if you own
hosting,
the domain, you own the .org or whatever.
That's your shit.
So intellectual property and everything. And,
So we could build this awesome platform on TikTok, YouTube, all this, and it can be taken away just like that. So if you haven't built an audience in your own domain, in your own world, then you're kind of screwing yourself if they don't have nowhere to go to consume your stuff,
I think it's a great idea, but it almost feels like a fail-safe that a lot of people don't take advantage of because everybody's relying on these platforms from Meta to and TikTok. And who really takes the time to go to somebody else's webpage? Now, for me,
I do. I mean,
I sparingly do. I'll go to a band's website if I want to buy their merch. I'll go through their website first so that I know they're getting the dollar instead of like Amazon or what have you. So like I'm gonna go and try to give them money directly, by going to their website. But how do I get to that website? Through their social media presence. That's the thing. So
and social media is free. And that's why everybody relies on that, because anybody can kind of just put up a free social media site, promote their stuff. It's easy. And then you're like, well, my stuff don't get reach. Well, it's free. So that's why you don't get reach, because it's a whole pay-to-play thing. But if you're playing for your own, you're paying for your own domain or your own, and you got all those people signed up to your email list and they're avid followers, that's a whole, that's a whole nother system right there. But
and it feels like there's got to be incentive you got to develop to drive people, to drive the traffic to to exit their social media platform. Well, I don't want to leave. I'm doom scrolling. Well, but don't you want this? Come and get it. A little hook and mouth. So you have to develop it over time. You have to give people a reason to leave their feed.
Well, there you're getting into a lot of folks aren't necessarily shameless self-promoters. You know, and I mean, this is kind of my perspective. Like, I don't want to invest in a website and a domain name and all of that, because then I don't know, it kind of for me personally, it takes away some of the magic of it, the underground DIY, word of mouth,
and that's a great place that's where you want to start, that organic foundation.
And so I'm conflicted. I mean, on the one hand, it would be great, I have the concept in my brain,
right.
but then investing the time, and then those things require maintenance.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And then next thing there, that could go away, just like so many other platforms. I mean, your website's going to still exist, but like you're saying, like maybe people aren't going to look at those anymore.
Right.
They're just going to look at their the content scroll of whatever form is in vogue at the time.
Yeah, but if you got it in pocket, you're like, well, TikTok shut down, but if you go over to the metalmaniacs.com or whatever, then you can see all of the other content or whatever that we put up there. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like you have a home for it.
You
distribute it. You distribute it on the social media. If social media goes away, at least it's all still there,
And there was a time not too long ago now before social media was a thing. And we were always going to all the web pages.
Yep.
Now you go all the way back to before Facebook, we had MySpace, which was
whatever happened to that?
Yeah.
That came and went.
It got TikTokified.
Yeah, it got crushed. So we've seen it before. The whole internet existed before.
Absolutely. I've been on the internet
rooms
since like '98.
Yeah,
I got for many years.
I don't miss that sound in my life. But the dial-up.
Internet's down.
Yeah. So it existed before, and I wouldn't mind seeing a movement toward, an old school era of using the internet where you would go to individual web pages.
Right.
And I think, again, it comes down to having something that grabs people. Like, can we chat on it?
Right.
Is that a feature? Can I have my users or my fan base come to my webpage and interact with each other?
Right.
Well, that's cool, because now I can skip all the nonsense of my doom scrolling and the shit I don't want. The thing I hate about Facebook or any other social media platform is, like, 3 out of 5 posts are something I don't follow or they're ad sponsored.
Oh God, it's awful. I mean, it used to be on Facebook, everything on that whole scroll was one of your friends, or one of your Facebook friends, and now it's 90% like ads or marketing or something. And then like occasionally something will come along that's like, oh, okay, that's someone I know, but then there's like, I mean, I only have 350 Facebook friends, and I can go through and I can remember where I met that person or what, or some connection, and some it's just someone I met once or whatever, but I remember it, and I friended them because for whatever reason I was compelled to, But now when you have to it's just a horrible cesspool of just utter garbage, it's really kind of unfortunate. It's what's happened to that. I think you could create you could invent a whole new social platform patterned off of Facebook, but under just like a totally different business model, you know, where you were literally limited to like 500 friends, and if you had a business, if you employ less than, 12 people or whatever, then you can have like, if you're like a mom and pop corner store or whatever, then you can, let people know about your specials or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But when you have it's all this corporate, and then if I search for something on, I don't use Google that much, but I use one of the more obscure, less trackable platforms, but it's still trackable. And even there, if I look for like a microphone or whatever, then all of a sudden on my Facebook, I'm getting ads for, it's just creepy.
Yeah.
Like I don't like that.
It's all about the advertisement, ad space, and all that. So
yeah.
But so I do want to get to the credit union here. I know we kind of had a little discussion or whatever. Do you want to go over your feelings about yesterday? Would that make you feel better?
It's funny you should ask. It's funny you should ask. So here's the thing, and I was thinking about it last night.
Because I'm here as a friend. That's all I'm saying.
I love you.
I always listen to you, and I'm always here for support.
So I'm watching it last night, and I'm like yelling at the TV.
Oh yeah.
I'm scaring the dog.
No!
It's scaring the dog. My wife is just like gripping, the couch and the blanket and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And she's a fan, as big a fan as I am now. It's crazy how my wife evolved into such a big fan of football. So we're talking about the Lions loss. We're out in the future now, but it's fresh.
Yeah, if
for
you know,
us.
you know. If you don't,
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, I got to thinking about it. I'm like, I just don't want to turn into like one of these salty fans that hates his team just because they lost. Had a great year.
Absolutely.
Had a historic
Absolutely.
year. And we have a great head coach. We have a whole great organization now from the top down. And it's one of those things that I think will be studied and made a documentary of. Because when Sheila Ford Hamp came into power and took over this team, she kind of went away from the way business as usual was done there. And she's an educator for people who don't know. She's not like a consummate business person who's always about the bottom line. She said, basically her philosophy was, we're going to make this work. We're going to learn. We're going to figure it out. So she started to get smart people involved instead of, bottom dollar shills. She got people that cared and knew, and she started to turn that organization around, as we say, from the top down. And that's the only
from the bottom up. I mean, we just reinvent the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, they gutted a lot of things. They got rid of people that they no longer needed. They fired off people, but they brought in a good GM, Brad Holmes. They brought in Chris Spielman, former great linebacker for the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
They bring in MCDC, Motor City Dan Campbell, to coach the team.
Yeah.
And at first, people are kind of like, this guy's out there. But as we can see, the proof is in the pudding now. Yeah. Better every year.
Yeah.
With the exception of losing out early this year. But I decided I just didn't want to be like attached to it in a way that emotionally like, oh, great, now I get to stew about it for a week or 3 months or until the offseason starts and get my hopes up for the draft. I still love football. I still love the game of football. I'm going to still go home and watch playoff football today and root for teams.
Yeah.
I don't root for any other team like I do the Lions.
Right.
Anybody else, I'm just kind of like, oh, that's a dumb play, or wow, what a great catch, or whatever.
Or I'd rather see this team win than that team
Sure.
or whatever. Like, it's not your team, but I do the same thing with basketball. It's like, I want to see these guys win, so I'm still kind of rooting for somebody, but they're not my Lions or not my,
I'm a root for Matthew Stafford always.
Yeah.
Like he's my guy
Rams,
still.
right?
Rams. Yeah. I'm gonna root for the Rams, and hopefully they pull it out. I've even been a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and we talked with Nate from Throne about Patrick Mahomes being the best player.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday he did something so egregious, in my opinion, to draw a penalty flag, like a flop in football, that I kind of immediately lost a ton of respect for that dude, and to the point where I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, he's a great athlete, but he did this little thing where he's by the sidelines and he's tiptoeing out of bounds, and he'll slow up. And
I saw that.
He'll wait to get hit right on the
Try to draw
sideline
the penalty for
to
a
try
late
to draw
hit or
to try to draw a penalty
What's
flag.
the penalty? If
Like-
you
Just like a
hit him?
late hit or out of bounds.
They'll call it like unnecessary roughness or
roughing
like,
the passer or whatever.
Yeah, there's various incarnations of this
Yeah.
penalty, but basically it's like, oh, you hit the important guy too hard, but he's sitting there trying to tiptoe it on the chalk, where as soon as that toe touches out of bounds and then you level him, oh, that's 15 yards.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of bullshit. Like, and that and all of the like, oh, I might slide. Now a quarterback can give himself up and slide, and you can't touch him. But a lot of guys, they'll go in there and they'll take your head off anyway. Yeah. And I think they got to do away with this, because what's happening is, you saw like with Trevor Lawrence, this guy went into a slide. Well, he about got decapitated by a guy because he didn't care. He ran in and knocked him, just concussed him. I don't know if he ended his season or he put him out for like 4 weeks.
Concussion ain't no fucking joke.
And then why are we giving ourselves up in one of the deadliest sports in the world? Why are we like giving up all protection? I say if you play football, you don't slide. You lower the shoulder, you take a hit, or you curl up into fetal and fall down.
Right.
Like, just don't slide.
Yeah.
Don't give up all protection. But I wanted to be detached from my emotions from it. Like when I woke up this morning, I was like, bummer, whatever, like move on, move forward. I don't want to stew like that. I don't want to be attached to something I have like no control over.
Yeah, and then it's like, where are you putting your energy? You're wasting all this energy being angry or upset about something like you said that you have no control over. Yeah. So, and that just leads to anxiety and depression when you start trying to control shit you can't control, So.
Yeah, but I did give it some thought. I thought we would talk about it. Thank you for opening up the floor to that football conversation on our podcast.
It's all good, man.
I
understand.
The people are skipping forward right now.
Me personally, I'm not a football guy.
Right.
You know, I'll kind of watch it. I'll watch
Sure.
the Super Bowl. I'm a very casual football.
Yep.
You know, as I'm going through Bleacher Report looking for my basketball scores, I'll see a highlight or you know, I'm hip to what's going on. But
Same.
I just, you know, it's just not my thing. Kind of the same with you with the NBA. When the big game comes around, we'll watch.
So you're
we'll
a bigger hoops guy?
Yeah, I've just always been a basketball guy. I've played
Okay.
basketball. I've just always loved basketball. And I know NBA gets a lot of flack and a lot of shit or whatever, but it's just a sport I grew up on. So same with football, right? So it's like if you played it, you kind of are beholden to it or the skill set it takes. And I respect it, but I kind of felt a little in my heart this morning just for all the football fans that I know. I know so many people. You've been watching the Lions since they've been 1-15 forever, and you know the same with BC and just everybody. I know a lot of football fans that are just very diehard football Lions fans, so I kind of felt it for it. But at the same time, what can you do? It's just a game. It's just sports, man.
Yeah, there's as they say, there's always next year.
Sports. It's supposed to be fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
You can't
to
control
enjoy
it.
You know.
And like I said, I've been a LeBron fan, so I've suffered so much disappointment in my life just seeing him lose so much and just knowing that I wish he didn't, but it's sports. You can't do nothing about it. You know, he's still a great player, but, you know, it is what it is. So.
I think bringing it full circle, it's important to kind of remain detached from your entertainment in a way.
Yeah.
Where you're not so...
Yeah, you don't be overly invested in it.
Yeah, like, you know, the fictional character dies, you come unglued, you're depressed for a week. Like, what are we doing here? You know, like your sports team loses, oh, well, the band shakes up the lineup or they sound different now. Now you're all emotionally attached to it.
Why did they do that?
Yeah.
They sound different.
Yeah.
Well, if you were in their shoes, you probably wouldn't want to play the same thing.
Yeah,
over
I
and
went to
over.
their concert and they didn't play any of the old stuff.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, no shit. They're tired of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they done did that, right?
Yeah.
Ben there did that.
So, getting into music.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's focus this back on Nick. Thanks for hanging out with the little. Sometimes we get in these little
sidebar
back and forth sidebar. But, you
no,
know,
I mean I'm right there with you.
We're more people than just metal and music all the time.
Yeah.
So sometimes we'll talk about a little bit more than that. So maybe you can take something away from that. But that is a very valuable lesson. Maybe somebody can learn from that. To be honest with you. Detach from some of that stuff. Detach from the TikTok band. Detach from, you have so many, and I get it. Like if you know, on the TikTok thing, like, you know, I know some people, they make some money off it. Tony's got a huge following and he makes money off of it.
Yeah.
But now it's just, you can't do it now. So I don't.
And there's every
you know.
chance that by the time this airs, it could be back.
Yeah,
right?
you don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
Because all it
Yeah.
says is it's not available right now.
Yeah.
Like you've seen all the posts, like the pictures taking the screenshots or whatever. It just says not available right now.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it'll come
still
back.
exists. It's like they didn't totally shut down the entire site.
You can still get it in China too.
Yeah.
So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, one backroom deal and it's back in a second.
Right.
I almost wonder if, and I don't know enough, but if a VPN would help.
So that was a question that was asked on the internet. I didn't look it up, but someone was.
I bet you
asked
could.
that question.
I bet you could with like Express VPN. You just change your location to China, and then you could get right in there. I would think.
Just
So,
outside.
I don't
the
know. I'm
US.
speculating. I don't know.
But that's an idea
in theory.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, but let's talk Nick Sondy, bro.
Here I am. Yes. How can I help you?
So I'm a internet stalker. When people come on the show,
you're trolling me.
Well, I try to get. I'm not trolling
you. Got a file on me?
You know,
no, I didn't mean. You know what I meant.
Yeah.
You did your due diligence. You did your research.
Yep, I always do. But you know, there's not a lot out there on you, so that also makes for a good conversation today. So you can tell me. You're here to tell us about you. So we're more than curious. So tell me a little bit about your journey. I see you're a musician. You play a little bass or whatever. Tell me where this all started for you, Nick, and before we even get into the credit union, I kind of want to know your path and your journey and what that looks like.
Oh, it's not that interesting. Well, I've been doing music in some capacity or another since the womb, I guess.
Okay.
And, you know, I grew up with the piano lessons, and I played in band, and
like school band?
Yeah,
Okay.
stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And you know, I was obsessed with my dad's record collection and my older brother's record collections and the radio in general. Then I lived in Chicago for many years and played in a wildly popular heavy rock band for a minute, and then I sort of went avant-garde, experimental, and which is more where my tastes lie to this day.
Okay.
but yeah, I got a bass when I was maybe 14 or 15,
Okay.
and then that became my major instrument in my late teens, early 20s because no one else would play it.
Mhm.
And then I really did the woodshedding and kind of figured out how to play it a bit. But yeah, I'm as a musician, I'm mostly retired now.
Okay.
And I don't really follow music that closely.
Sure.
I mean, I follow the bands that play at the space.
Yeah.
Sure.
But beyond that's like enough music for me. I'm more into other stuff.
Okay.
Fair. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to stay on the up and up with what's happening in music, especially.
Well,
with
it can
the
totally
internet.
consume your whole life,
Yeah.
Now
welcome.
with the internet and everything. I mean, you
welcome to our world.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just now it's like every time I hear something, it's very rare that I hear something new that like really like catches my, because I have so much experience with music. I know, I just kind of instinctively know all the tricks or all the the craft.
Yeah, you know how the sauce is made.
Yeah, I know how the sauce. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like a chef who maybe just looks at the ingredients, doesn't look at the technique or the
right.
amounts or
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good analogy. We love cooking analogies on this.
Oh
show.
yeah, see, I watch more cooking shows than music
guy right
videos.
there, then.
Or,
Yeah, I just graduated from the Culinary Arts Institute of Michigan.
no way.
Yeah, so
Oh.
back in
May?
Back in May, I graduated. Then I did my internship through the half of the summer. So,
Oh wow, fantastic.
so yeah, and now I'm a stay-at-home dad. So
Yeah. Well, you got plenty of time to cook. Then,
yeah, I just work on
Like,
my stuff at home. But yeah, we
Yeah.
love the cooking analogies. So would you say that you grew up in a really supportive household with the parents supporting the musical
Oh
endeavors?
no!
No?
I grew up in an absolute dysfunctional nightmare. I mean, like,
Okay.
and I laugh about it now because I have many years of
Sure.
distance from it. But
Yeah.
no, I mean,
So it was more of a coping thing for you, would you say? Like,
well,
or
it was
a safe space. Anyways,
I
we
was
say?
I could play a little piano, so all of a sudden now I'm like a prodigy. Like,
Okay.
no, not really.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I mean, I wanted, when I got to band, I wanted to play percussion or drums, and they're like, no, you will play trombone. You
Yeah.
know? And so like, okay, so which served me pretty well. I mean, I wound up going to college. I started out in college in music school
Okay.
with a trombone scholarship, which was very short lived because I wasn't cut out for music school at all.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I just I still played the trombone. I went from last chair in the concert band to second chair in the second jazz band in 1 year.
Real cool.
Because I had a really good teacher who actually showed me how to practice and got inside my head and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then later I just adapted all of those techniques to learning the bass, which turned into, it was very applicable in various contexts. But I dropped out of the music school and then went straight to the college radio station,
Oh.
and where I was the manager for several years, and that's where I did a deep dive into indie music and all the stuff that was happening there. And so yeah, I mean, I was fully immersed in music for many years. I mean, that's totally consumed. I mean, I didn't watch TV, or maybe I watched Cops or something like
Right,
that,
right.
or
Yeah.
or did
Whatever's on.
David Letterman maybe,
Yeah.
or Conan O'Brien or something like that. But I didn't, not like now where I'm watching all kinds of the internet. Well, we didn't have internet in those days.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
no.
so I don't know if that answers your question. I forgot what the question was.
Well, you just
or-
asked if you grew up in a supportive.
Oh,
household
that,
of,
yeah.
like, as
No.
far as
My
music and stuff, like-
it wasn't that bad. Let me be clear. I was never there was never any like crazy abuse or anything like
sure.
that.
Yeah.
But it was just more on what we would call the dysfunctional side. My
Sure.
parents divorced when I was 12, and and then there's like custody.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
all that.
I've-
But
went
I mean,
through all
you
that,
hear
too.
these horror shows.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, I had nothing
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But it
Yeah.
literally just be. I mean, it wasn't ideal.
Right,
And
sure.
it was. I mean, nobody's childhood is ideal, but so that there's still, deep-seated psychological
Oh, yeah.
problems
Yeah,
that
I understand.
navigating to this day, but it's
Right.
not that bad, and I'm fine now.
Yeah,
Usually,
usually, the reason I ask is I think it takes like a certain kind of parent to even humor a child's endeavor to play music.
oh yeah, well that's a great point. I mean, when I was in high school, my mom let me practice rock bands in the living room.
Oh,
Okay. Really cool.
So and we weren't even going for anything that subversive. So when we got a gig, and the other band that wanted to play was more of like a punk band. They needed a place to practice, so they were on the gig, and then, so I was like, well, I'll ask my mom, I guess, and she's like, okay, and so so now the punkers walk in with the mohawks
Oh, yeah.
and the boots, and I'm
Leather.
like, oh my god,
Right.
what is gonna? And the young man just totally Eddie Haskell's my mom like a pro, like, hello, Mrs. Sondy.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
and like thank you for having it, and she's like, oh, that's okay, you're welcome. I was
Yeah.
like, what is this? That was a I don't know, a bit of a lightning bolt moment, but we were just, I mean, the music was horrible. We were still learning how to play our instruments.
Yeah.
We're like 15 at the time or
Yeah.
whatever, but so yeah, I mean, there was support there,
Okay.
but then there was also some maybe unnecessary expectations, or
Sure.
that's one of the great things about the credit union is when I have kids, like teenagers, literally, some of them playing like their first gig or whatever, and their parents are there,
Right.
and I'm meeting the parents, and and they're so appreciative. They're like, oh, we have a place for the kids to play and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's just beautiful to me. I mean,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes it all worthwhile,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite parts of it, because I mean, I didn't have anything like that. Like, there's no way, like, I could have gone like to the ice pick with my parents,
Yeah, right.
like that
Right,
they would
yeah.
have just, they're from a totally different generation,
Yeah.
they would have been just like, what is this, like,
Oh, yeah.
that's not music, but
Sure.
times change. And,
My dad plays music, and then
Mhm.
he would see like a heavy band, and everything to him is just speed metal. Like he doesn't even know anything about genres or subgenres. It's just
Yeah.
not what he plays, so
Right.
it's speed metal. That's
Yep.
and he's
Yeah.
like, these guys are up there playing that speed metal. He always does that thing, and I'm just like, come on, Dad, you got
yeah, it's
do
a
a little
little
better
more
than that.
nuanced than that.
Yeah.
But when you go back and you said you had a great teacher, was that teacher teaching you how to practice
Yes.
perfectly? Because practice is one thing, but perfect practice is a whole nother thing. Like, because you can practice wrong,
Yeah.
right? You can build bad habits and practice wrong.
Right.
Or,
Right. See, I had a lot of those, and he got inside my head. See, okay, so I had my official trombone teacher who, he was great, but he never dealt with, anyone quite like me,
Yeah.
So, we had a great rapport, but he wasn't necessarily the best teacher for me. But there was an upperclassman. He was a grad student, who I'll never forget. He told me, he's like, Nick, you got a really good sound, but you just have no idea what you're doing, And I'm like, okay. So, and he really got in my brain, and he's like, okay, slow down.
Yeah,
First of all, a trombone is a very nuanced instrument. It's all, how good your ear is, and how your motor skills, how you tune it to those 7 positions. And he's like, you're close, but you're not, just slow down, and you do this and do that. And then he introduced me to all sort of Eastern Zen philosophy, like the inner game of tennis, or
Okay.
Zen in the art of motorcycle maintenance, or Zen in the art of archery. The inner game of tennis, though, that one's particularly popular with musicians over the years. Every time I buy a copy of it, I give it away.
Nice.
But then years later, they wrote, it was so popular with musicians, they made it like the inner game of music, and the author talked to a bunch of musicians, and I don't know, it's not as good, because I didn't know any of the musicians that worked on it, so I don't know. I mean, but anyway, it's this whole idea of your motor skills, getting your motor skills away from your I don't know, to use a Scientology term, the reactive mind or whatever. So where you're playing, you're not thinking about like, oh, I have to move here. Now I have to move there. You're more in the moment and you're prepared enough to whereas you're playing, from the right place and you're not you're not playing from like the ego, like I am so great, listen to me, I am so great. You have to humble yourself to the instrument and to the art in general, and at the end of the day you're just a drop of water on a leaf, like that sort of thing, like so that and then that's what I applied. Then I had this rapid improvement on the trombone, and then I just applied all that to the electric bass later, and rock music and playing and stuff like that. So good times.
Cool. Yeah, I always ask that because we're always interested in people's practice schedules, how they practice, all that kind of thing on this show. We ask all the bands, like, how often you practice. Some motherfuckers don't practice at all. Some motherfuckers practice all the time. It just all depends. Some people don't need to practice and they still sound great. I wish I was one of those guys, but if I'm not practicing all the time, I'm not as good as I want to be, so I'll tell you that. But so let's that kind of brings us up the speed a little bit on the Nick Sondy earlier years.
Yeah.
And now tell us a little bit about the inception of the idea of the credit union, where that came about, where that idea stemmed from.
So, fast forward, 20 years, I guess, and I just moved back here. I'm from the area.
Okay.
And I just purchased, a literal credit union. And which was never my plan. I was just looking for like a affordable, one, maybe 2-bedroom house, which in those days, like 2016, there were tons of them. And I looked at a lot of them, and I just wanted a pad where you could maybe set up a drum kit or make some noise in the basement once in a while and not bother the neighbors too much, maybe a vacant lot on either side.
Every musician's dream.
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
thank you.
For real, though, real talk.
Yeah.
So
when I found this place and just lost my, I had to, I'm like, oh God, I'm getting this, and then they wound up basically giving it to me. I mean, nobody else wanted it, it was like a rescue dog or something. So but even then, at that point, I didn't envision it as a venue. It was never, now I'm going to start booking bands or this or that.
So it's a commercial space, zoned for commercial. But you were thinking I was going to make it my residence.
Yeah. That was initially that was job one. I mean, I turned the break room into a kitchen. There were 2 bathrooms. I took out one of the bathrooms, put in a shower. You guys have never been there.
No,
dude, it's like
sadly,
right over there.
Yeah, I know it's.
Yeah. Well, we got to get you in there sometime.
I know.
What's your if he dies?
No.
I'm sorry.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron.
And that used to be our old band, Infinite Design.
Oh, okay. What do I know?
Yeah.
See, I didn't.
You're
do my
close.
homework.
You had the letter I. You were on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Iron Sharpens Iron is the band that I play in right now. So.
Okay. Well, when you guys need a gig, just let me know. We'll get you in there. And if not, there's other places to play, and we'll get to that too.
No, no, we'll talk more about that here in a second.
But going back to so the credit union setting up, and so I don't want to drop too many names, but the whole impetus came from improvising grandmaster improviser saxophone player from Philadelphia named Jack Wright.
Was he the guy you were jamming with on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah. And we made an album and played a bunch of gigs in the early aughts, like 2000 to like 2003, and that's when I was doing all kinds of improvising in Chicago. It was like the Emperor's New Clothes, like improvising. You could play or see somewhere at, a coffee house or maybe an indie rock club like every night, for a while there. And I was totally enveloped in that. And so anyway, Jack and I kept in contact all these years, and he wanted to play in West Michigan somewhere. He'd heard I'd moved back here, and can you get me a gig? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And so I'm like going to places like Unruly or The Block, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a musician. I'm from the area. I know all these musicians. Could I maybe book a show at your place once in a while? And they just like what? And I mean, I went everywhere. I tried all kinds of different places, and it was like I got treated like, I mean, they were just like, I couldn't even get an email response or or if I talked to someone personally in the bar, they were just like, well, live music? Yeah, we got live music. Come back on Saturday.
Right.
Left Leppard's playing.
Yeah.
They sound just like Def Leppard. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It could be like a Tuesday night.
Right.
Maybe bring in some people that wouldn't be here otherwise. It'd be this kind of cool experimental underground thing. Like no idea what I was talking about. So Jack, in his genius way, says, well, why don't we just play at your place? And I was like, whoa, that's a good idea. Because I have the perfect place for it. I don't know why it didn't occur to me. So now I'm a first-time venue, first-time promoter, and we set up the gig, and he brought in Rough Housing, one of his many bands at the time, and so I made a flyer, and I hit all the usual suspects. I went to my local record store, and I show it to Paul. Who I didn't even know he was the brains behind J2K2 at the time. I didn't even put that together. This old school, local hardcore band that I saw at the Ice Pick back in the day.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't even put that together yet. And he said, well, who could bring some people in is this guy named Travis. I was like, oh, who's Travis? Give me Travis on the horn right now.
Yeah.
So they were doing like I think Third Coast had just opened, and they were doing like a opening, with the DJs and stuff like that. Well, he'll be here Friday or Saturday or whatever it was. And so I meet Travis, local music mogul.
Out in Grand Haven then?
No, Muskegon.
Oh.
Third Coast. You're thinking of Off the Record.
I was thinking the recording place out in Grand Haven, Third Coast.
Oh, no.
The studio.
That's a nice studio. Yeah.
That's called Third Coast.
Yeah, Chrysler.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. You said Third Coast, so I was thinking of the studio in Grand Haven.
So had it not been for Travis, there wouldn't have been anybody at this first gig.
Okay.
But he brought in like 10 or 15 folks, and it was a very attentive audience. And I made kind of a grand opening gala out of it, where we, cut some caution tape, and I have pictures and stuff like that. And
love it. Ceremonial.
Yeah. And Jack's an old man, and he hasn't ever seen anything quite like that before. So anyway, he had a great time because the audience was very attentive. Sweet. And he's like, well, we're coming back, and so that was the first gig, and then it just took off from there. Then later that fall, well, if I drop any name, the one we had, Raphael Torrell, I think that was the second gig ever.
Okay.
Who is, right now he is the cat with the hat, with the horn, one of the best. It's on everybody's best. He's from Portugal. He's like an experimental noise guy who released this album just last year called Spectral Evolution, and it's on like everybody's top 10 list. And I don't mean just like noisy, experimental lists. I mean like just like Pitchfork or Wire, like the hipper indie sort of lists. It's in the top 10, the top 5. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, this is an absolute classic. It's like noise music. It's so good that if you don't like noise music, you can still listen to this and maybe kind of appreciate it. But you can still watch it for free listen to me. Listen to it for free on Bandcamp.
Okay.
But anyway, so he somehow wound up at the credit union that following fall. And then after that, we were having a great run up until COVID, and then the COVID pulled the rug out of it. And then, post-COVID, it's just a whirlwind of shows. And I was basically infiltrated by the the heavy rock cats of all kinds, metal, screamo, grindo, whatever. To me, it's all just heavy rock.
Yeah, sure.
Know? And the West Michigan hardcore website, which I mentioned earlier, I think was once it got to there, it was just like drop a flyer on there, and word got around. I was this very big fish in a non-existent pond,
Right.
and there's just such a need for it. There's such a need for it in the community, and being all ages and stuff like that. Like, that was. I mean, everyone was just so responsive and appreciative and thankful, and sometimes even annoyingly polite. And so yeah, I mean, it's been a great run. I mean, right now I have absolutely nothing booked. Nothing.
Okay.
Which is kind of unusual for the first time in several years now. I mean, I think last winter I had like 3 or 4 shows in January, some of them on a weeknight.
I feel like right now is booking season for.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, last year was absolutely fantastic up until 4th of July, and then I don't know, late July and August was. I don't know what was happening. It was like I wasn't popular anymore. The space wasn't popular anymore, or whatever. Like no one was showing up.
We'll put a little spotlight on you here today. And
oh yeah. No, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it at all.
Well, so when you moved into this place, or what do you 2018, 2019?
Well, I bought it
17?
in. I got the keys on Halloween, October 31st of 2016.
Okay, 2016.
Yeah.
So
and then I work, and so I had to fix the place up and all that. And so the very first show was spring of 2017. So
okay, yeah. So you're quite into this for a while now. I think the problem is some people probably just haven't heard of it, but I know.
Oh no, there's all the time I get like, how long have you been here? I didn't hear of it. I mean, there's plenty of shows where there were just. I don't want to say too many people because it's an inclusive space, but I mean there were just too many people.
Yeah.
I mean it was hard to. It's a small space, and
Sure.
I mean 70 or 80 is a lot.
Yeah.
Like actually 30 or 40 is kind of the perfect amount.
Yeah.
But when you get into over 100, and there's a line at the bathroom, and it's hard to walk around, and then you can't really get a good shot, a good visual on the
what's
band,
going on.
and then and then all the activity outside, in the summertime especially.
For sure.
So there's like a sweet spot, where there's like, and it's so I haven't been overly shamelessly self-promoting it I mean, I still promote everything, to some degree, but I'm not like, it's not like the early days where I was like running around to my neighbors begging them to come over,
right?
Or grabbing people off the street. Come on, get in here. You got to see this. But yeah, going forward, hopefully we can maintain that sort of, I don't know, quality control so that everyone gets a good experience,
Yeah.
because that's what's really important to me, the bands and the fans. And
well, you've had some. I mean, the Sissy Boys, Tongue
Oh,
Cutter, Fermented Plague.
Oh
those are
yeah,
the
they
Tunnel
played.
of Love.
Fermented Plague played the first time last summer, and there were I think 5 people there.
Right.
Pain Divine, Mutilation Barbecue, which those guys are an out-of-state band like Ohio, and they're actually signed, I believe. Jeremy must have brought those guys, Jeremy. But yeah, man.
I don't know.
You've had quite a few bands in that place that we are very familiar with or friends with or whatever.
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, geez, man, I bet the Sissy Boys are fucking doing cartwheels down there. I'm
Oh,
sure.
yeah. They're always fun and so
then,
professional. And I have a bit of a rapport with Jake, and I've met Dom, and I just recently met Bill.
Okay.
But they
Drummer.
they have a slightly different lineup from time to time, and those guys are just like in and out, and they don't waste time.
They keep it punk rock.
Yeah.
They don't need bells and whistles. They just do their thing and get the fuck out of the way. And that's what's cool.
Oh yeah, I
about
love
those
it.
guys.
Yeah.
And then you had the Goth Night, which was
August 31st, I want to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Remember Ross was talking to us about it when he came on. I believe he came on the
Yeah.
show or whatever. We were in that conversation. Ross, he plays in the band Long After Midnight. He was talking about the place.
Yeah, we had the
Goth Night.
they were there
Yeah.
long after midnight.
Yep.
Oh, they played
he's
that
a good-
night. They played that night. I
Yeah,
think.
he's Goth Night.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of ours. He has his own podcast called the Dangerville Podcast.
Oh,
We're
okay.
actually going to go out there next Friday and be on it. But
Yeah, better remind me.
yeah. So, but yeah. So he's played there. We know a lot of people that played there, heard nothing but good things about it. So I mean, I think what you're doing for the scene is absolutely amazing. Now you say, do you think some of that, you said not as many people have been booking or maybe coming just the last month or two, or do you think that's because Rake is now having shows?
Well, here's the deal. A couple of things. Number one, venues go in and out of favor. Any kind of venue has its ups and downs, especially a DIY venue.
Right.
You know, now there are other places. There's like the Rake, there's the Corner. In the summer, they have stuff at the Band Shell. Various places. I think there's even a place up in Whitehall now, like the refrigerator or something. Or, I don't know.
The Whirlpool.
Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't speculate. I don't mean nothing against those folks.
Oh yeah.
My point is,
we get it. Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great. The more it's not. I mean, I'm not the most competitive person in the world,
right.
unless I'm playing chess. But even there, I don't mind losing if I lose to a better player.
Gotcha.
You know? As long as it's a good game.
Right.
You know, if you want to play over there, fine, go for it.
Right.
You know, I mean, seriously, going forward from this point right now, is saying I don't have anything booked right now, not even a nibble. If I never booked another show again, I don't want to say I couldn't possibly care less. I mean, that sounds a little harsh, but I'm totally okay with that because it's been such a great run.
Right.
And so many folks have had, you know, so much fun, and it's been so rewarding for me personally. You know, if there's other places to play that are maybe more suited or better, or, you know, I mean, I get why you'd want to play the Rake because it's a bar in downtown Muskegon, you know, of course, you know, like I would want to play there too,
right?
You know, or even the Corner, you know, I mean, that's the Foyer is a very potentially, you know, great place to throw shows. You know, like there's a show coming up there in a couple weeks. I think it's like all of those bands. I mean, that would. I mean, those are all the usual suspects that you know played. You know,
at the credit.
Yeah. So and you know, I have people will approach me like, well, why aren't they playing at the credit? You know, which is, you know, kind of precious, but you know, it's like. It's fine, you know.
Yeah,
it's like I don't, you know.
It's not your entire being,
right? Exactly.
It's just
exactly.
like TikTok.
Yeah,
if
again,
it goes away, it goes away.
Yeah. It'll be There's other stuff you know I can do with my time,
right?
You know,
and
in a bit, it's like it's kind of a relief, you know, like, oh, good, I don't have to do that, you know.
So I don't have to host a show tonight on a Friday when I could be playing chess or whatever,
or doing whatever I want.
Yeah, watching cooking videos or whatever you said you like to do.
Yeah,
you know, so I get that, man. I get it.
My perspective on it is. Yeah, I have this outlook on it where because you're not a bar, you're not selling alcohol.
No,
correct?
hell
so
no.
No alcohol.
Well, no, I mean you can bring alcohol.
Sure.
I mean,
so my perspective on it is like you're inviting a really exclusive kind of crowd out to your venue. You're not catering to people that want to drink and hang out and socialize. You're wanting music fans to come and hang out.
Well,
and
that's
watch music.
that's just sort of been part of the organic process. I have hardcore music geeks of all ages,
right,
and all backgrounds,
right.
And you know, then that's a great scene to foster in my mind.
I agree, and that's the thing I like about the idea of the credit union is, you know, you've had like the Hot Room or other house party type venues where
Carmen and Chantal.
You go down into the basement and you watch the band play, and that's kind of my outlook on the credit union. Is it's a good place for maybe up and coming bands to get their feet, you know, on a stage for the first time, and or like, hey, let's just crash test our new album out at the credit union and see how it goes over, and just play it live. And you know, I think there's a certain way that you can treat a venue like that and still get a lot of value out of it, whereas you go out to Rake and who knows what percentage of people are actually there for the band. I mean, sure, generally a great deal of people will go out and see a band, you know, but you know, it's a bar, and sometimes people are in and out of
there.
They're just kind of like, well, I'll just go to the show to go to a show, but they're not like, oh man, this band is playing, I need to go and see that band. Whereas the credit union is like, oh, you know, like this band's playing, I'm going, because the band is playing, and that's the main reason to go, not for the new beer, not for the new flight of beers. You know, it's just like I'm going to see music performed. Yeah.
So at what clip were you doing shows before? Like every Friday or 4 times a month, or what was your?
It goes in. I mean, I try to keep it to like 2 or 3 a month. You know,
Okay.
that just so
Fridays, Saturdays? Is
Well,
that
I
where you
started
go?
out it was Friday, Saturday exclusively.
Okay.
Because it was challenging enough getting folks in on a Thursday, you know,
Right.
whatever. But then with touring bands and when word got around, we had no problem bringing in 60, 70, 80 people on a snowy, blowy Tuesday in January.
Yeah.
You know, and so I kind of loosened my policy on that. You know, like whatever day you want, I don't care. You know,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. I mean, I guarantee the infrastructure. I can't guarantee an audience. You know,
Right.
I mean, anyone who does this long enough knows that you can do everything right, promote the hell out of it months in advance, and for whatever reason nobody shows up.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can throw something together at the last minute, you know, and you have a riot on your hands. You know,
Right.
for whatever reason. It's just like those degrees of separation and the word of mouth and
Yep.
what you're playing up against. And I don't try and we can't play that night because Stinky Pinky's playing in Grand Rapids that night or whatever.
Right,
you know,
right.
and everybody's going to go to that. So so pick another night or whatever. It's just like whatever night works for you and the bands you're booking. Scheduling.
What are the time frames on these shows usually?
I I don't care. Like if I'm booking it, maybe it's someone I know. I put like doors 7:30, music at 8. But I mean, and some folks run on time like a Kremlin clock, and other folks, I mean, he'll say music at 8, and the first band isn't going on until 8:45.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't care, because I'm at home. I don't have to go anywhere.
Sure.
But other time, that pisses off some of the patrons. It's
yeah.
like.
Been
When
standing
are
here
they
for
going to
an hour.
start?
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. It's like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to be like, play now. I
Right,
mean, I
yeah.
might gently remind them, like, hey guys,
Yeah.
But you can go all night as long as the activity in the yard isn't too robust after like 11 or 12.
Yeah,
yeah.
You can play all night. But typically everybody's out of there by like 11:30, 12.
Okay. That sounds like
But
my kind of show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
These days, that's still a late hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, on a weekend, on a Friday or
Yeah,
Saturday. Now,
yeah.
a school night a little differently. Maybe start a little earlier, get done a little earlier, that
Gotcha.
sort of thing. But
Yeah.
generally, people just sort of vibe into that.
Yep.
It's not really an issue.
And are you kind of like that's kind of like the format though? Maybe about 7, 8 o'clock. 4 bands, unless you're a punk or hardcore band, you could probably have 8 bands in a 4-band span because they all play 2-minute songs and your set's only 20 minutes. That's all the music you have anyway. But I guess because most of your flyers and stuff look around about 4 bands or so.
Yeah, that's pretty typical.
Now, do you dictate that? You dictate like, hey, you
Oh,
got
hell
30,
no.
30 minutes to play.
Oh hell.
So
no,
what do
no.
you do? You just leave that up to the band and
Leave
you
it
say
up to
you
the bands.
handle this.
You handle this. Yeah.
Set times is up to you guys. When we end is up
Yep.
to you guys. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome,
yeah.
'cause-
Typically,
yeah.
there's a point person. I'll be like, okay, Jason or Jay. Sorry.
No, that
you-
doesn't matter. That's my name.
You you booked this. You handle the money.
Gotcha.
you orchestrate the gear in, gear out thing.
Gotcha.
I make suggestions. I'm like, now if everybody brings all their gear in at once, then there's gonna be no room for the audience.
Clusterfuck. Yeah,
So if possible, can you share amps, share drum equipment? If not, I get it. You got to have your own stuff. Maybe load in, play, load out.
Yeah.
I know that sucks. I
Mhm.
used to hate having to do that, but you can't leave your gear there all night.
Yeah.
Because it's a small space.
Yep.
And you need room for the audience, stuff like that. But one thing I really like that's a new thing that we never did back in the day was you have your headliner, your second band, your third band, your fourth band. We always followed that order. I mean, whoever was listed top on the flyer, you played last.
Yeah.
Whoever's
Yeah.
listed bottom, you played first.
Right.
Always, no exceptions. Nowadays, they'll improvise a schedule, and I think that's great. It's like, we'd really, we need to get out of here because we got to
Yeah.
drive to,
Yeah.
Milwaukee.
Uh-huh.
Can we play first?
Mhm.
Sure.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
Like I worked that
Yeah.
out with Jason or whatever.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like, and then, so I, as far as the number of bands, I mean, if they go too many, I'm like, well, okay, if you have 4 rock bands and 2 noise acts, and the noise act set is only 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Right.
You know, but if you want to do like 7, 8 bands, it's like, well, now we're teetering on the brink of a festival.
Yeah.
You know? Like, can we,
Yeah.
you know, and that's just from a audience standpoint, that's just like, I don't need to see, you know, 7, 8 bands,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
too much.
In a clip,
in one,
yeah.
in one clip. Yeah.
Unless it's advertised like the Heart on Your Sleeve Fest or something. Like
Sure.
that, you know,
Yeah.
Which I think
that's a different thing, you know. So
Yeah, it's only once a year.
Yeah.
So
right, and that's kind of how festivals are. You know,
Yeah.
you kind of have them the once a year. Like FYA just happened down in Florida and stuff
Yep.
in January. So it's. But yeah, that's kind of cool. If you don't mind, can we talk a little bit about the money? Does that bother you at all?
Sure, not at all.
So-
It's the credit union, so there's a
Yeah.
financial component.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I see most shows are like $10, which is way more than fair. I think. I mean, plus it's your
Right.
fucking place, dude. So it's like,
Right.
you know, you still got wear and tear on your,
No,
you know,
no
or
wear and
whatever.
No.
So how does that work as far as the money goes?
Well, I never take a cut. You're welcome to, you know, perform there, use the space. The artists get 100% of the door
Mm.
and 100% of the merch. Okay. The reason I can do that is my budget for any given show is maybe I print up a dozen flyers, you know, which is maybe a couple of bucks if they're black and white, you know,
Right.
maybe a little more if they're color.
Yeah.
And I buy a case of water. You get free bottled water.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
So I get to see all this music, and I don't have to leave the house, you
Yeah.
know. So and I have a good job, so I you know, I don't work that much. I'm part-time, but I'm the pad's paid for. So
Okay.
I mean, some of these kids are slaving away at, you know, Subway for, you know, $14 an hour or whatever,
Yeah.
and paying, you know, $1,000 a month in rent,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
for a place that's roughly the size of this room, you know,
Right.
like that's just, I mean, criminal. And so what am I going to be like, where's my $50 cut? You
Right,
know, like
yeah. I
that's
get
just,
it.
I have a huge ethical
Yeah.
problem with that,
Yeah.
you know. And then a lot of folks are older and they have good jobs, and, you know, it's not, but here's the thing. I mean, there is a financial component, and the thing that bothers me is when, you know, you book a show and then I say, like, all right, I can collect the money if you want, but I prefer not to, because I'm running around hosting, doing other things, putting out a fire over here, or sound checking over there, or, you know, so if you're the point person, you collect the money, just leave me out of it, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
But then they don't, you know,
Yeah.
and they're like, well, okay, we don't really care about the money. And it's like, well, I understand that, but I want to train the audience that comes here that there is an economic component, get them used to the idea of paying,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because drumsticks and guitar strings cost money,
Fuck
you
yeah,
know,
dude.
and
Yeah.
and you have invested your evening and your, you know, time to haul your gear over here and perform. You know, it's like you should get something out of it. I
Yeah.
hate
Well, as a
bugs the
musician,
shit out of me walking out empty-handed.
yeah,
you know?
I'm a huge proponent of getting paid and
Sure.
not getting paid in exposure. Not like, oh well, now you get to grow your fan base. Nope. I mean, it costs money to be a musician. Let's be
Yeah.
honest; it's one of the most expensive hobbies out there.
Sure.
And if you want to go out and, you know, it costs gas money to even get to the venue.
Right.
Right.
So I'm a huge proponent of never playing for free. And if you're a venue that says like, hey, you're not going to get rich here, but you will walk away with cash money in your hand. I think it's really important. And if you're somebody in a band, or if you're the guy that's the point man for all of the bands,
Right.
you should definitely be at the door
Right.
collecting the dollar bills.
Right.
from
Yeah, I
every
agree.
person, mark the hands, slap on the wristbands.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
distribute at the end of
we've
the
done
night.
that. We've had wristbands. I've been thinking about getting a rubber stamp. That's like in the
Oh, there
works,
you go.
but,
Yeah.
Even
but yeah, at the
cheaper.
door asking that, I tell them, like, don't turn anyone away. Okay. I mean, you're going to have occasionally typically a younger person who literally doesn't have $10, you know,
Yeah.
let them in, you know, and they really need this, you know, because they
Yeah.
don't have $10,
Right.
you know, and then I let my neighbors in for free, you know, like,
Right.
but
They have to put up with you.
exactly on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So, you know, or occasionally I'll have some old buddy of mine who'll show up, and it's kind of annoying, but they're like, well, I've known Nick since 4th grade. You know, it's like, that dude doesn't give a fuck,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
just give him $10. You can afford it,
Right.
you know? So if it's, I get it. Like some people are uncomfortable asking for money or, I mean, here's one just recently. We elected the point person to collect the money and they proceeded to, I was kind of watching them out of the corner of my eye, ask no one for money. Okay. Then they went up and made an announcement, you know, please give us money, which I followed up with, you know, like, yeah, that's right, you know, and I give them the shtick. And then someone comes up to me, hands me money, and then I immediately hand it to the person who was elected the point person,
Yeah.
you know, and they like look at me and go, huh? And I'm like, oh my God.
The cash box.
Yeah.
So anyway,
have a
that's
cash
the
box.
economics of it.
Okay.
And, you know, worst case scenario, if you're from out of town and for whatever reason, nobody shows up, I mean, I will reach into my pocket and, you know, pull out some cash and be
Yeah.
like, man, I'm really sorry, you know.
Yeah.
But that very rarely has happened a couple times.
Right.
But
So let me ask this question. You know, a lot of people do things in service of others, and I understand
Sure.
that. But at the end of the day, we all kind of do things that also serve us. You know, it could be 50-50, you know, same with this podcast. I love hanging out with my best friend and talking to all these bands and everything. It helps give them exposure. But I
Sure.
also like to be able to talk about music every Sunday and be in threaded in the scene, right? So there's always a give or take. So I heard you say that your biggest joy out of it is kind of being able to see all this music for free. Is that what you get out of it?
well,
I guess what's in it for you? That's my question.
well, it's I don't know. I guess it's self-gratifying being, you know, a integral part of the music community, or what. You know,
Okay.
I say that, you know, sarcastically, but I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, well, that and the when you see the kids that are so appreciative, you know, I don't have any kids,
Right.
and the parents that are so appreciative, and just anybody, just, you know, they appreciate it. I mean, it's not that hard for me. I mean, what do I have to do? I have to clean. You know, I should probably do that anyway.
Sure.
You know, so that's like a
Probably a
motivating
good idea.
factor. You know, it
Yeah.
keeps me. I don't know. It keeps me grounded.
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
in some ways.
Okay.
You know, believe it or not, I do have friends. You know, I do have a social life. I do
Right.
still have family, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
watching football with my brother last night. You
Yeah.
know, and you know, a lot of those folks aren't into what I'm doing. You know, they don't get it, but
Right.
some do, and you know, so I don't know. I mean, again, I didn't sign up for it, but it was just sort of a thing that started happening, and it just sort of snowballed. And it's very easy for me to do. Really, I have that much time invested in it. I don't have that much equipment invested in it. We should probably talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that was actually
then
going to be
like,
my
okay.
next question.
And you know, so what do? I buy a case of water. I print some flyers. I send out some emails, or some social media. You know, and I've made a few, you know, I've met some really cool people,
Yeah.
you know, and gotten to know some really cool young people, you know, and you know, that's about it. You know,
Okay.
I mean, it's
that's
it's
cool.
not a meat market. It's not like
Right.
I'm pulling tail out of there left and
Right.
right. You know, it's like
or you're pocketing all that.
yeah,
money
right.
or
Like, yeah,
some
where's my
shit,
$50? You know,
right.
it's not a pay to play. You know,
Right.
it's a door gig.
Yeah.
You know, and you get 100%. You get what you get. And
Okay.
I've had some of these big metal bands that have, like, you know, 20 different T-shirts and all this merch,
Yeah.
and you know, and an extraordinary social media presence with like all these people. I mean, they walked out of there with this biggest smiles on their face, not because they got a great show and all that, but just with hundreds of dollars.
Yeah,
you
because
know?
they made some money.
And they're like,
yeah.
you know, and they're just feeling, you know, energized about, you know, the rest of their tour and
Yeah.
stuff like that. That's just worth it all for me. I mean, wow, I made that happen. That's pretty cool. You know?
That's cool, man. I mean,
So-
it's selfless, but at the same time, at least you get something out of it that continues
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
keep going, right? So let's talk a little bit about the equipment. I
Sure.
have that right here on some of these questions I don't always have written down. They just come as they come. But
Sure.
this was one I had written down. Tell me a little bit about what equipment is provided as far, like, do you have a PA in the basement or?
I do.
Okay.
And there's a lot, I mean, in my view and many folks' view, it's adequate. Okay. We have 300 watts of PV. And yeah, it's just old school PV. now I've gotten flack, like my PA sucks. It's like, it's not great, okay, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's the only thing we do is mic the vocals. It's 1,500 square foot basement, so the sound we're going for is like your prac pad.
Yeah.
With we don't mic the drums. We sure as hell don't mic the guitar cabs. Don't need to.
Yeah.
So I always tell them, if you play in balance with the acoustic sound of the drums, and you don't go too loud, we can get the sweet spot with the vocals, and it helps if the vocalist knows how to use a mic,
Yeah.
and all that sort of thing. But I can put a little bit of reverb on the vocals if you want, or we can tweak that or this and that. But our possible exceptions are if you have some backline, like maybe a keyboard or a drum machine or a sampler or something like that, we can run that through the board.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's unusual. It's mostly just bass, guitar, drums, and throat.
Yeah. Have you dealt with any triggers?
Triggers.
Triggers
drum
on the
kits.
drums?
I'm not sure what that is.
Oh, okay. So it's a little device that you put on one of your drums. Mostly it's always used for like death metal kick drums, and that just runs into like a little brain thing that's kind of like this, and it sends a signal. So that kick drum is usually pretty muffled and muted. It's not like a regular kick drum where it's like a snap, kind of.
Are you talking the
muted.
double pedal?
Yeah. So usually they'll trigger those because they're playing so fast that it's hard to hear that acoustic kick drum because it just kind of bounces over each other, and all you hear is this muffled fucking kick. So a lot of drummers use triggers. Like my drummer, he does, but we're kind of trying to get away from that actually because of the fact that it always is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I was just wondering because usually you got to run that through a sound because it's an artificial sound that comes out of the.
So I see.
As soon as the beater hits the kick drum, it triggers that.
Interesting.
Triggers that pad, and that pad sends a signal to the brain. The brain is usually hooked to a PA or something like that.
It's
so I was just wondering. You must have never had to deal with
No, that's interesting because I'm unfamiliar. The only experience I have with that is from time to time. Occasionally, I will have a drummer who insists on miking the bass drum.
Yeah.
And I have to tell him, I have very few rules, but one of them is we don't do that. Because for a number of reasons. Number one, the room is really small, and it's not necessary. I've had all kinds of drums that don't do that, and you can hear the foot just fine in balance with the whole kit, just because of the nature of the room. Number two, I don't have the proper microphone for that.
Yeah.
That would require, granted, you can mic anything with anything.
Yeah.
And those rules are easily broken, but I don't want to damage one of my microphones,
Or your PA.
Or my PA for that.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's like a great way to blow a PA. So
smack
if
that
you got-
fucking kick drum in there with all that bass, just
Yeah,
fuck
say,
that
like,
shit up.
If you got vocals and just kick drum coming through the PA, that doesn't sound like a very good combination.
Exactly,
Right.
that too. And because I've experimented with it. That's the thing. It's like folks don't always understand. It's like they'll come in and they'll say, well, why don't you elevate the PA speakers, get them off the floor? And I'm like, well, honestly, we tried that. A buddy of mine had the actual old school stands for those particular speakers, and we put them on there, and I tried all different sorts of adjustments, and it's different, but it isn't necessarily better.
Right.
And then it's a liability because it's on a stand.
Yeah.
And if anything, it fed back more, because it's up at the level of the
and then you got
microphone.
the mic,
So no, if you put them on the ground, or they're on cinder blocks, but so they're up a little bit, but and then don't put your cabinet in front of the
PA
speaker.
Yeah. Kind of like some 101 stuff. You might have to
and then like occasionally, like dude will push back, like, well, that's our sound, and it's like, well, okay, it's just muffled with it. But I can adjust that at the board, and so then they'll start playing like, can we have more vocals in the? I was like, no, we can't.
Yeah,
just if you
just
move your, like the younger me would have just
Yeah.
publicly bitched him out, and ostracized, humiliated him. But
right.
now I'm just like, okay, no, sorry.
Get some in-ears if you want to hear it.
Yeah, and I think you can't be delusional at a DIY basement type venue
Right.
gig.
Yeah.
I mean, let's
Yeah.
be honest here. Like,
Yeah.
we charge $10 at the door, but this is a DIY thing, man. This is for like if it's
a lot of
cool.
brands bring their own PA.
Right,
You know,
right.
like,
You
take me out of the equation.
like,
Fine, that's fine.
Exactly.
You know?
Like, yeah, you can accommodate to some of these bigger bands that might come through on tour or whatever, but don't expect the intersection sound system in my basement. You know,
Right.
like, come on,
Nope.
you got me. So you're running sound there? Is that what you do then?
I mean, it's like baby's first mixing board, you know, and it's typically just one or maybe two vocal mics. So if the band has someone that wants to run the board, fine, you do it, you know, or if someone in the band or, you know, wants to run the board, fine. Or occasionally one of my associates will be there and they'll run it because I don't like to babysit the board the whole show. I gotta you know,
see what's going on.
So, I forgot what we were. So yeah, I mean, it's it's not like this is my board. You know? It's not like as long as you don't slam dance into it or you know, like I really don't care. It's like do whatever you want. I make suggestions. I don't tell people where to put their amps.
Gotcha,
but it's like it's my experience. If you put them up against the wall, it's going to blend better with the PA. And if the drummer
behind the drums,
even better.
Yeah.
And if the drums move back, I mean, don't scrape your spine on the wall.
Right.
But the farther back you go, and then and then I get dudes like all the time, like, oh, you need to put up acoustic tiles and stuff. It's like, no. This is a live end, dry end.
Yeah.
Okay. That bouncing off the brick gives the ping on the cymbal and the snap in the treble and the vocal and your audience, even if it's only 10 people, the clothing and the presence is going to absorb it at that end. And I mean, some bands that that are really listening, just the blend through the floor is 5 inches of reinforced concrete. Okay. And there's no wood, there's no windows, there's nothing rattling.
Right.
So you get this natural compression that comes up through the heating vents. And a band that's really in balance and really tight just sounds, to my ears, really good. Upstairs is almost like the best. Then you go downstairs and then maybe it's like you hear one element a little more than another, depending on where you're standing and stuff like that. But anyway, so that's the sound. I mean, some bands get just like a great sound. Other bands they're just too loud. I mean, it's scary loud.
Yeah.
There's nice and loud and there's scary loud.
Yeah.
Scary bad loud.
Yeah.
And
but
maybe if that's your thing, hey, whatever floats your boat.
I get that. Art's subjective. I know what
Sure.
I want. I don't think you need all of that amp, and you sure don't need all of that feedback, so shut the fuck up with that, 'cause that shit drives me crazy. You start noising out and feeding back, I'm just like, what are we doing here? But that's just because Nick and I speak for Nick on this. We kind of, we're kind of more of the highbrow. We kind of take all of our shit pretty serious. We love to joke around and laugh about everything all the time. We goof a little bit on bands and stuff or whatever, just for laughs. But at the end of the day, if it's our art or my art, like I'm taking that shit serious. I don't want to hear no noise. Even if my other guitar player's making noise, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? If my shit's making noise, and shit happens, you know what I mean? I'm not that militant about it, but at the same time, it's like, for me, it's like you gotta put all the snakes in the barrel. You got to get that all fucking figured out.
I don't mind if a little feedback is like written into a part.
Right.
Like this is, I need to like get the pickups in front of the amp here so I can get natural feedback. But when every time like you like take your hand off a palm mute or something, it's feedback.
I hate that.
Yeah, or
there's like
anybody
feedback.
sets their guitar down to purposely, intentfully get feedback for like the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes of their set. I'm like, come on, now you're just trolling us. Now you're being a dick.
You for my oeuvre or ethos, I mean, you really got to know what you're doing if you're going to do that. I'm not going to be impressed.
Right.
99.9% of the time. If you really know how to do that, then like, oh, okay, this, and not that I mean, sometimes it's kind of endearing watching a younger person literally learning how to do stuff, and then I mean, I'll tolerate like bad music. It's subjective, like you're saying, but I have way more tolerance for that than like bad, theater or bad, like a comedian who's bombing, but still thinks they're funny. Isn't it like acknowledging the fact that they're bombing? It's just delusional.
So you said slam dancing, but I call it moshing.
Oh,
but
yeah,
same-
sorry, I'm showing
same
my
thing.
age.
Nope,
I'm
you're
showing
good.
my age.
You're good.
No, I think
Yeah.
it's just a different scene. Slam dancing is more hardcore punk. We're thrash metal, so we say mosh.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Anthrax, caught
it's
in a
all
mosh.
heavy rock to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
and
heard
that's
that.
fair. That's complete. That's probably the best subgenre definition that I've ever heard. Just heavy rock.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
one of my favorite
Yeah.
genres.
I mean, you don't need much more to explain it than that, but you can really get in the weeds with some of these subgenres. But what is that policy like? I mean,
Yeah,
just because
that's a great question.
it can be a liability, I
Oh,
understand
good
as
God,
well
yes.
too. You know.
Well, here's the deal. I don't like it. I'm not into it. It's not my thing. I would
Right.
rather just watch the band
Mhm.
or listen to the band, watch the band, and not have to worry about getting an elbow in the chops. You know.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
That said, it's not my DNA. I can never be a no slam dancing, no mosh guy, because then, you're every major art movement has a music, a dance,
Yeah.
and a visual, And now the visual is bands that you can't read, Maybe that's part of it, or
The logo.
and the dance is now moshing, I
Yeah.
guess, or what. But and so I mean, when they were tumbling ass over teacup into my hot water heater, which wasn't necessarily ideally placed. So I wrapped caution tape around it. And then I think they started bumping into it even more, So then I wrapped a chain link fence around it,
Okay.
and then they really started going into it, knocking it off the thing, but never when I was down there. It would always I'd like go upstairs and then I'd come back down like, fortunately no pipe was ever
Just get
busted
some
or
cool noodles.
and I don't know that it was ever intentional. It could have totally been, by accident. But the point is, I moved the hot water heater. It's now on the other side of the room.
Okay.
Not a liability. Made more room and better sight lines, and
Good.
Oh boy, was that a project. But anyway,
bet.
Sounds like
the thing is if the pit starts to get out of control, I turn the lights on. All the lights, and I tell the band that if you got a pit and it starts to get a little, and that generally settles the natives a little bit. Or I mean, one time I don't remember who was playing or what. Some little dude pushed 4 or 5 great big dudes into me, the mixing board. And I spilled my beer onto the mixing board.
Oof.
And tumbled a little bit into my archivist, Kimon Kodos. He's an old man with he brought that night the 5G camera, the tripod and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
He's an old man with an expensive camera off to the side, staying out of the way, documenting the thing.
Yeah.
And then I lost my shit a little bit, and I grabbed this dude. I've never been in a fight in my life. I'm not like a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
I get you.
I grabbed him by his scruff of his neck, and I was like, "Dude, you got to chill out." And he was just utterly terrified because he's half my size, And he's like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Oh, sorry, man. I didn't mean it. Just you're cool. Just don't do that again."
Yeah.
You're not. He's not like. He just literally pushed.
Yeah.
A bunch of great big dudes with their backs turned to him.
Oh.
Like
so they weren't even ready.
They
so
weren't even
yeah.
ready. So one tumbled into another and then into another, and it's just like, who does that? I mean, why?
Yeah,
I don't get it. It's like, and every once in a while, this dude's just gonna fuck shit up.
Oh, yeah.
It's like not really there for the music, and like stuff like that. And then I think that young man might be the honor of the only person that's ever been thrown out, because my neighbor Matt, who's a good buddy of mine, told me a few days later, he's like, "Oh yeah, I threw that kid out." And I was like, "You did?" I was like, "I already talked to him." It was. No, when I saw that, I was like, "No, get out of here!"
You're done.
And I was like, "Well, I wish you would have told me,
Right?
Because I,
It'd be a
anyway.
learning experience for him, because
Right.
as a concert goer and a fan of music, a fan of live music, you just have to have almost an innate sense of respect for the venue. You're at somebody else's house or somebody's place of business. You can't be trashing the joint.
Right.
And it just has to be almost natural. Like, hey, you going to have somebody come over to your house and kick your stuff over? No.
Right.
No,
Like,
hell
let's have
no.
some
Yeah, it's not
decency
about
here.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just to be clear, I mean, everyone's been, no one's ever thrown up. No one's ever broken a bottle. Or maybe there was one, but it was by accident, and they told me immediately.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't even think it was someone, it was like on the ground, and someone just like bumped it, and it, you know,
Shattered.
whatever. And then, you know, no one's ever passed out, you know, there was one girl we had to help her out. I don't know. She was maybe in a little over her head or something like that. Tongue Cutter was playing. Yeah. And all of a sudden Chantel like, can we have the house lights up? And she's like, she saw it from and it was over on the side. I was like, whoa, are you okay? And I'm over there with the flashlight, you know, like helping this girl upstairs.
Chantel's going to have the mom vibes kicking.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I remember her talking
any bloody
about that.
noses or busted teeth or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware. Oh, I heard about one kid got popped in the chops pretty good, but I didn't know about it at the time, so he had to like take a break, but he was right back in there.
Okay.
This was just something.
But you're
was
not like
telling me.
mopping up pools of blood.
Oh hell
ever,
no,
ever.
nothing like that.
Okay,
nothing
yeah, because
like
I mean,
that.
I've seen it. At
yeah,
at
sure.
a bar
Oh,
where
it's
like,
happened to me.
Yeah.
closing time, and then all hell breaks loose, and
Yeah.
you know, instead of getting paid right away, you're watching the owner mop up blood off the floor. So it's like, you know,
No, nothing like that.
that's good.
No.
I mean, and I ask
No.
because you're allowing the moshing, and it is tight quarters, so it's just
Right.
like I think anybody who hasn't been there yet, they want to kind of get a good idea of what the room's like before they set foot in it.
Right. Well, there isn't a whole. I mean, once in a while there'll be some moshing, but it's not like a main part of the experience.
Yes.
You know, it just depends on the band
Yeah.
and who's there. And
I also think that tends to come along with the alcohol. Once the inhibition's lost, once people have had 4 or 5 drinks, then they're going to feel like, oh, let's get rowdy. Whereas if you're at the credit union, and yes, sure, it's BYOB, and some people might be there to hang out and drink, but I think by and large, people will go to a venue like that to listen and watch and
Right.
not be about moshing as much. You know,
Right.
I think, and knowing that there are fewer people there for that reason is going to kind of deter people from
right. Well,
crowding space.
generally overall, I mean, I remember the dudes that I don't like that were there doing that.
Yeah.
And they're like a one and out. Like I
Yeah.
never see them again.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But there I've buddies of mine that I've met over that are into the moshing thing. You know, they know it's not my thing, but you know, I almost feel kind of better like oh, okay, Alex is on the floor moshing. You know, he's a civilized adult person.
Yeah.
You know?
He's gonna
so
be
he's going to be
respectful. He knows when it's gonna
and
get
he's
out
gonna
of
kind of
hand.
set the tone.
Yeah.
You know, for the interpretive dance or whatever you want to
Sure.
call
Yeah.
it. You know,
That's
Yeah.
a great way to
And
put
I
it.
think mosh pits can be very well self-contained. We're not trying to go wall to wall, front to back, and cover every single square inch of the floor. We're usually like in front of the stage,
right?
And centrally located,
Yeah.
and people can stand on the outside of that and form a little bubble around it.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, most people with their head on their shoulders will not barge into the people standing in there just that don't want to participate in that.
Right.
They might bounce off them a little bit.
Right,
but
that's
they're not-
fine.
They're
No,
not trying to
that's-
throw
that's-
elbows through the entire crowd.
Yeah, that's a very clear distinction. That's generally the kind of thing that happens when it happens.
Yeah, and that's
It's very rare that I get someone going wall to wall.
Yeah.
Or trying to instigate the folks in the perimeter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that don't want
that
nothing
don't
to do
want
with
any.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's very rare.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's where I just kind of stand like there.
Yep,
I will
that's
put
me.
I will put an elbow right in their
Yep.
back.
Yeah.
And, I know that's going to happen. I don't like to participate in it. When we were down in Kalamazoo, it was going off pretty good down there, a lot of pitting. But I just stood there, and plus they had some little kids out there too. So
Yeah.
I was like in dad mode half the time. I'm like
Sure.
trying to stand in front of the kids, and I'm like, hey, let the kids see their parents play. But I'm mostly just like the elbows up kind of a guy, or I'll catch you and then I'll push you back, but I'm not trying to propel you into somebody necessarily. I'm just kind of trying to protect my own ground and anybody around me in the immediacy of my area.
Right.
So I think people in the perimeter need to just kind of have a level of awareness that might be a thing, and then the people that are in the pit don't try and like go after the people that are on
Right.
the perimeter
Because
just watching.
you'll see at some shows, dudes will do that. They'll purposely charge into
Yeah.
the people, and people are just assholes. It's like, dude, we're there to enjoy some music. It's
Dude,
cool
yeah.
that you want to.
Yeah, I didn't come here to get beat up.
Yeah,
right?
like, join the MMA if you want to try to get someone's ass. Like, come on, what the fuck are you doing? Like, just be respectful. But.
Yeah, and it's also just like you're just picking on like random innocent people that are just standing there, like
enjoying themselves.
Just get with somebody who wants to do that alongside you. Bump shoulders with that person who wants to elbow and get rowdy. Just do that with that person. There's usually a half a dozen people that are about that life.
Yeah, exactly.
Just find your people. Leave the rest of us alone to watch and listen.
Yeah.
You know,
so
and when we can
exactly.
we can coexist. We can share
we can
space.
peacefully coexist, and everyone will have a good time. And that's generally the vibe overall. I mean, with a few,
that's good.
you know,
there's always a
significant
couple of bad seeds,
you know,
it's always
minor exceptions, but overall it's been very good. So not a lot of those kinds of issues.
Well, awesome, man. I got a couple more questions for you. I'm not going to keep you all day. I'm going to respect your time. We went about 90 minutes so far. So,
sure. No, that's perfect. I don't want to. I mean, the gift of gab is a gift that I have. I don't
hey, it's okay. We just go until it fizzles out most of the time anyway. But I don't just try to keep people all day. Plus, I got stuff I got to do today too.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. No, I guess.
Same.
But so you've seen a lot of bands. You're a musician yourself. See some of these young guys come through your venue, see all that. Do you have any advice that you would give like an up-and-coming musician or band? I would love to hear maybe some feedback that you could give, you know, just from your experience.
Well, I mean, this is the instrument, you know.
Yeah.
Like whatever you're doing here or
what about this right here?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If this gets in the way of that, then what are you doing?
Right.
You know, the thing is if I've learned anything is I can tell what you're thinking while you're playing, you know. Like if you're thinking like, oh my god, this is awesome, you're gonna have a good show. You know, if you're thinking like, oh my god, this sucks, you know, sometimes that'll work, but not usually. You're gonna have a bad show. You know, like I can tell when they walk in and they're like, where do I set up the merch? They're like, ooh, bad question. You know, I want to hear, okay, where do we play?
Yeah.
You know, like, are you there to sell merch? Or are you there to make music?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just play out as much as you can. You know, think about your playing situations and, you know, develop some hobo skills, you know. Go into it with reasonable expectations. What are your goals? I mean, is this a hobby? You know, do I want to, you know, maybe try and go semi-pro? You know, well, then develop a skill where you can take time off. You know, a work thing. You know, be a plumber or an electrician, or you know, or
make your own schedule.
Make your own schedule. Yeah, so you can, because I mean, the life of a musician, even at the semi-pro level, is life on the road.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to play in your hometown once, maybe twice a year, you know, and hopefully every other town on the planet, you know, once or twice a year, every night, you know, if that's your, you know, you want to make it, you know, there's no, you have to develop those skills. And, you know, just go into a reasonable, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a local yokel and playing, you know, out, you know, once in a while with your, or locally, or, you know, but, you know, and there you can, you know, that gives you almost more leeway to be more creative, you know, because then you're not, you know, married to this particular sound, or, you know, I mean, that would be like the main thing. And then, the other thing is just like be creative. You know, there's no wrong way to do it. You know, so much of it's so derivative, and so much. You know, it's like I can tell. Like, okay, yeah, Black Flag. Yeah, okay, you got some Black Flag records. All right, I get it. You know, like, oh, okay. Oh, you got some Metallica. Okay, yeah, I heard of those guys too.
Right.
You know, like, okay, and then, you know, and it's, you know, so much monkey see, monkey do. You know,
there's a lot of
like
that.
Yeah, and you know, you can imitate or you can innovate. You know, like if there's nothing wrong with imitating, you know, but don't act like you're like don't act like you're innovating.
Yeah,
you know, be realistic. You know, you can take what you do seriously, but you know, don't take yourself too seriously. You're not.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we take our music seriously, but also Jason and I have had numerous discussions over the years where we realize like we're not reinventing the wheel.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's way too hard to be the most innovative, newest musician, especially with.
Well, impossible unless you are that person. You're part of like 2 or 3% of the population that broke the mold when they came out of the womb.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, a lot of it is just saying like, "Yep, this is my influence. This is what I came up on." And if you say I sound like
this
that,
is what I
then,
like.
Yeah,
then
this
is what I'm having
because
fun. Yeah,
then I've done my
exactly.
job.
Sure,
Yeah,
there's
like,
nothing. There's
you
nothing
sound like
wrong with
XYZ band. Well,
Thank
great.
you.
That's
Thank
what
you.
I was going
Yeah.
for. I'm glad you noticed that.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that you know those bands because that's what I listen to as well.
Right.
Yep.
And I think to your point too, when you're talking about setting expectations coming into the venue, it reminds me of this idea like, what do you find at the top of the mountain? Well, what you bring. It's exactly what you bring with you. That's what's at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
So,
that's good.
So when you have this expectation of performing at a DIY venue, let's be reasonable here. Like we're going there to have a fun time.
Right.
Like
Right.
we're not going to get signed by the record label.
like
make
that.
it, make a gang of
One
merch
day we're
or
gonna
a
make
bundle.
it.
Yeah.
Gonna make a big star, you kid.
It's like crash testing your music in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
It's like we've done the practice at the rehearsal space.
We put in the work.
And we tightened up, and now we want to go and show it off. And we're not going to get rich today, but we're going to make some friends. You know, and I think that's like just be reasonable about your expectations, and not put a whole bunch of expectations on the venue owner,
right,
or anybody else to enjoy your music outside of you. Like just enjoy what you do. And have a good time. So I think that's something I wanted to throw out there. You reminded me of that as you were saying, like just have a healthy, reasonable set of expectations when you come through the door.
Absolutely, yeah.
Know what you're trying to do.
Another thing I tell kids sometimes is, well, and adults for that matter, is you can be a wildly established indie rock entity. I mean, you can draw respectable indie rock clubs all over the planet, and even get into like small theaters, like 1,500 seat rooms and stuff like that, and sell recordings and have like 10 critically acclaimed albums, and maybe, okay, you've got enough money to quit your day job, but you're not necessarily buying any houses or putting any kids through college, or you're not necessarily going to have any retirement, and it's like, but
Insurance.
oh wait, you're you're from the and it's like, well, yeah, but I'm only pulling in, there's a lot of the economics of it are, sketchy at best.
The non-musician doesn't really understand that.
Right. Well, and a lot of musicians don't understand that.
Yeah. That's another thing too. Is like, you see all these famous musicians like, oh, they're touring and they got to have all this money. Nope.
Yeah.
Right.
They're the last people to get paid.
Right.
The record label gets it. Everybody's got their hand out first. The musicians get paid last, and I see it all the time, even with bands that have been around forever. You got your Metallica. Okay, they're dirty rich. And then everybody else that sounds like Metallica that's not filthy stinking
Dirty
rich.
Yeah.
They're famous. Oh, it's Charlie from Anthrax. Well, he's probably got some money, but he's been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah.
It takes 40 years. You're gonna sit there
and
and
at a major label arena level.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
25 of those, he probably wasn't making money.
No,
so
exactly.
That's the whole thing.
Exactly.
You got to be willing to put in that 25 years of not getting shit.
And being at the level that they were at, they kind of had to fold and cater to sounds of the time. That's why when you get to a certain point in Anthrax's career, they start sounding like Soundgarden.
Yeah.
And this grunge metal where it's like, where'd the thrash go? Well, we had to keep up with the times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you're
Metallica-
listening to other guys how to play. It's like, again, no individual original vision, or you're following the crowd and not setting the tone.
And you have to listen to outside forces like your record label tell you, like, hey, this isn't going to sell. You want to sell some albums. You want to play some shows.
No one's doing guitar solos no more, so
drop all
not
that.
needed. And yeah, exactly.
Sometimes I think if you're going to do this for a career, you got to have a real strong understanding of what you're getting yourself into for like 40 years, of your life, and
that's if you didn't.
It's a hobby more than anything.
And that's if you didn't sign a bad record deal, then you're not making any money off all those past recordings and things. So people get into those kind of situations as well. As,
right.
You really got to know what you're doing. But
I think you got to be a multifaceted artist these days to make it as a musician. You got to be able to do the paintings. You got to be able to do the media work. You got to be able to do so many other things outside of your instrument and your craft, just to kind of sell yourself and make it in this world.
Yeah,
as a
creating
musician.
content, being an individual content creator, so people fall in love with you, and then maybe your music second. But at the end of the day,
well, yeah, there's a lot of artists that are just creative people in general that started out, doing one thing, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, something like
photography.
Yeah, or something journalistic like Roger Ebert, the film critic.
Okay.
I've been watching him a lot because David Lynch just died.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I went back and he hated Lynch, or he panned his first 5 movies or something like that, and then I think he freaked out over Mulholland Drive or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Roger Ebert started out as he was he wanted to write scripts. He was like a script writer, and then he just got this opportunity to be a movie critic, and that's what he's known for.
Yeah.
And then he got, kind of an early podcast, the fat guy and the bald guy. We used to call it the show where Gene Siskel, Roger Ebert, they would talk about movies. Public television in the 70s or something.
Yeah.
Showing my age.
70s.
But
80s,
anyway, there's an example of someone who starts out you might start out I never imagined I would be a venue guy. If you would have told me, just 7 years ago, you're going to be this venue guy in Muskegon, with all these bands playing in your pad and stuff like that. I just feel like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
That wasn't my idea. That was, I never planned for that.
Yeah.
And now, I can do it. I like doing it. But the other thing I was going to say about the delusional sort of thinking of some of the musicians is you can do everything right. You can make 10 great records and have a lot of fans, but you're not super uber popular. It's you just, not everybody drops a track I don't know, Gautier or something, something like that. That's just completely blows up or
gone viral.
Yeah, it goes viral. Yeah, or that the Hawaiian thing we were talking about earlier. Was that on air? We were talking about
prior to the air.
Yeah.
Air, but no.
That Israel record, the Israel playing somewhere.
Yeah.
He was just a Hawaiian guy playing. Who had this idea to record this thing, and then it blows up. So I mean, there's a lot of variables in your artistic endeavor, your career, or whatever you want to call it. Going forward.
I think one of the things that Jason and I always go back to is you gotta love that you're doing it.
If it gets to be a drag and it's not working out, and you just got to recalibrate, do something else, or fix what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's
so
the thing too.
So it's fun.
Yeah, you can't just always do the one sound all the time. That's what people want. The same thing all the time as a listener.
Some bands do that really well.
Yeah. But as a musician, sometimes you got to branch out for your sanity.
Yeah, for your sanity.
There's musicians that do that professionally, but behind the scenes, they're playing bluegrass or something. Totally different. The thing that bothers me sometimes about a band will come through and they'll be early in their inception and they'll be super quirky, super original. Every song's different, and they sound. And I'll be like, wow, these cats are really cool. And then they'll come back a year later and I'll see online that they've been all over Michigan or the Midwest. Wow, these guys are busy. Wow, great, cool. Then they want to come back and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, come on back. And then they come back and then they sound like just another heavy rock band.
Yeah.
It's all the quirky, originality, individual sort of. But I think what happens is they go out and they play and they're on the road and the headliner is a heavy rock band with a draw, and then they totally slay.
Yep.
And so now they're like, oh, I want some of that.
Yeah.
And so that it's like a socially engineered virus that just gets into your brain.
Right.
And it trickles down into your art in every single way.
I mean, it's just modeling. You see somebody successful, you model yourself after that. That's a big rule of success right there. I mean, your path isn't going to be the same, even though you might try to make it that way, but your path's going to be completely different. But same with music. You're just modeling what you see works, but the problem is it may not work for you because it worked for them, so you have to change your route and your direction, like you were saying.
Got to to be
So,
authentic with it.
I got 2 final questions for
Sure.
you, buddy.
Yeah. sorry, I'm going on and on.
No,
here.
you're
I'm
cool, dude.
Highly
Nope.
caffeinated.
Nope, you're totally fine, man.
We're good.
For one, how do bands get booked? How does one book a show with the credit union or at the credit union? I should say.
Sure, easy. You can reach out to me. If you can tag my email on the post or whatever.
Yeah, I can do any information you want.
I'm easily found on Facebook.
Just Nick
But
Sondy.
yeah, I mean, you can friend me, send me a message, but tell me in the message, what's going on, so I don't think you're some, creepy internet scammer.
Right, gotcha.
But I don't. I mean, I do the scheduling, but I don't do a whole lot of the booking. In other words, typically every show has like a point person.
Okay.
It's maybe the drummer or the bass player, although sometimes it's the guitar player or singer, whatever. Somebody's in a band and they want to play, and they know a couple other bands, and if that night's available, it's yours. It's that simple. And then I like an 8.5, preferably black and white, but I can do color flyer, and then a finalized lineup, ideally a couple 3 months in advance. That's maybe how far out is the best window, because that's time to finalize the lineup and get the promotion happening. And I absolutely hate cancellations. Please, once it's finalized, I mean, I understand it happens, but meat whistles, drummers, aunt's cat died or something, I hate that shit.
Yeah.
If you're hospitalized or there's a death in your immediate family or you're incarcerated, I get it. My heart goes out to you, but otherwise,
show up.
Yeah. I mean, have some respect for the thing you're doing,
and everybody else too. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, I'm not. You don't have to send me a link of everything you ever played, because honestly,
you don't care.
I don't care. Yeah, I mean, I will look at it. I'm curious. I mean, don't care is a little strong.
Yeah,
but I am curious about what you're up to, musically and all that sort of thing. But I'm not going to go through every one of your things and listen to it beginning.
Yeah,
to
you're not
end
going to investigate their band like you're about to put on a podcast like we do or something. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So you want to talk music, you want to hear where they're coming from, and stuff like that. Yeah. No, it's like, I mean, whatever. I mean, if you play gospel, I don't care. If you play country, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever you play, I mean, oh, you play heavy rock. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. So
okay,
if that answers your question.
No,
it
perfectly does.
Yeah. And you've already got the email, so we'll have that to post, right? Like that's how you contact them.
I will send it to you if you don't. We'll follow up afterwards.
Make sure you send it to me. That way I can post it in the chat or whatever, because I don't know. It's not on your Facebook.
But ideally, I mean, I have a number of lieutenants who, well, now they book either at the Rake or the Corner now. But anyway, there's like certain point people that have booked stuff before. That's they will come to me with is this date available, and I'm like, yeah, sure, and then it's done. So I mean, if you, but I'm saying it's inclusive. If you don't know any of those people, I don't care. You don't have to go through. We're not auditioning. It's just like. Yeah. If you want to perform and you want to jump through the very minimal hoops, then it's just
right.
Yeah,
but
do it.
If somebody does contact you, would it be preferred that they kind of already have the whole night planned out? Like we got us and 3 other bands. Like you're not doing any of that legwork for them.
Oh hell no! I mean, well, no. Here's the deal: if you don't know any other bands, or maybe you're from out of town, I will reach out to someone. To a band that hasn't played here in a while.
You've got like
I
can
do.
Rolodex.
Oh yeah, I got a Rolodex. Yeah, sure. But I mean, I prefer not to have to do that.
Sure.
But I can, or if I have some out of town ringer, maybe I can get Silver Abuse back or something like that, or Rafael Toro. Oh my God. I'm gonna be calling some people, but I just assume I prefer to have it just organically sort of happen. But again, to answer your question, if you're from out of town or if you're just starting out and you don't know anybody, some of those are actually some of the more interesting shows because no one knows and you have more of a variety.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And
Variety's
that's
fun.
that's fun for me. That's more fun for me.
Yeah. I like variety at a show.
Yeah. But
especially with the metal shows.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. So, but yeah, I mean, we can work it out. It's not like a deal breaker.
Right.
Like you're just completely hands off. Like,
no, I'm not
hands
hands off.
So
but I just prefer to have have it more happen organically, and my involvement is minimal as possible.
I love that approach. Though.
To summarize, for out of town bands, never been to the venue, never set foot in it, they can expect to collect the money at the door themselves. and that capacity max, you're looking at what, 80 to 100 people.
Yeah, if it gets more than that, it's
So if you've never been there and you're coming through and you want to make it worth your time and your travel, monetarily, like those are some things that you have to consider. Like the room fits 80 to 100, and that's max, and you're talking about elbow to elbow.
Right.
And you also want to have somebody perched at the door to make sure that, hey, if making the $10 per head was something that you really set on, like to make
you got to put your mind to it.
The travel from Detroit or further, then you need to have a point person at the door to spot
and
that,
if
because
you can,
Nick's not handling that if he can't help it.
Right.
Yep.
And I mean, I can, but again, it's just better if I don't.
Yeah,
sure.
And if you can work up like a Cash App thing, like that's like a thing now.
Yep.
I'm a cash guy. I want cash.
Sure.
And I don't want to have to do that. Like, but you're more than welcome to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
If that helps. But yeah, that's the booking. And if you're traveling and you don't, and you have hobo skills, I've hosted lots of out of town bands. I got
Gotcha.
couch and futon, and we can scrape up a peanut butter and jelly sandwich,
Air mattress.
Folgers
coffee.
Oh, I even have a clothes washer now. That's functioning.
Cool.
First time in my life.
Oh wow!
But I don't have a dryer, so I have a clothesline.
That's funny.
So you got to plan ahead if you want to throw a load, in the dryer or the washer. Anyway, it's a work in progress. I'm constantly improving and tweaking it and making it better and stuff like that. So.
All right, buddy. So I got one final question for you.
Sure.
We're going to wrap this beast up. So what's next for Nick, Sondy, and the credit union? Where do you see this going? What, in the future here?
I'm just going to continue doing doing it like I've been doing it, and improving it, and I will continue to do it and for as long as possible. I mean, the cops have never been there.
That's good.
Been minimal issues with the neighbors.
Also good.
I know most of them, in some cases personally. So as long as you stay out of their yards and don't litter, and I'm going to continue to try and bring in a little bit more of a variety and a little bit more of like experimental stuff that I like.
Okay.
And but at the same time, it's inclusive. I mean, if you could literally do anything, musically or artistically, or if you're a visual, the place kind of has a gallery feel to it. I've always thought about if you wanted to set up, you're a visual artist, want to do incorporate, you could leave up your work for a month or something, and then everyone coming to the show can experience your visual art. Like that sort of thing might be fun. I'd love to bring in do a comedy thing.
I was just going to ask you that. You ever thought about like that?
Oh, good guy. I've reached out to a couple of the local comedian moguls, and I don't know, they haven't really responded.
Gotcha.
Which isn't a deal breaker because they already have other venues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
would that require you to have 100 fold-up chairs somewhere?
I have at least a couple, or I have at least a dozen of those.
Okay.
I have fold-up chairs. I can get more.
Yeah. Bring your own chair.
Yeah, bring your own chair.
Right. Yeah. Just bring the little pop-out camper ones or whatever.
Yeah. Well, there's the theater seats. That's 4 right there, and then I got 12, maybe 15 fold-outs. So I've had sit-down shows where we set those up.
Okay.
Sometimes.
That's cool.
So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to wrap this beast up, man. I really appreciate you coming through. Nick Sondy, the Credit Union, 405 East Broadway, Muskegon Heights, Michigan, 49444. Look out for shows there. If you want to book something, you can get the information right from this podcast. I appreciate your time today, man.
Thanks
so much
for having me.
Through.
It was a great conversation. You asked all the right questions.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. We usually have bands on the show, but we've had photographers, other people that contribute to the scene in any way. So I kind of feel like that's also part of our duty to highlight some of the other people that contribute just to the music scene in general. It doesn't always have to be metal, like we said many times on the show.
Oh yeah, that was very clear from your back catalog.
Yeah, we're geared towards that, but we highlight all kinds of bands, so it's not just
we had a pretty clear idea coming into it. We were going to talk about metal, but also we know what Jay loves rap, and that's
so do I.
not going to pretend that we don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're
Right.
definitely all inclusive as well here.
Yeah.
Like we've had non-metal bands on, and
Yeah.
it's all gravy. We love just seeing the art happen.
Well, I think anyone who's really into music listens to everything. You know,
Yeah.
there isn't a genre you can name that I can't find something that I like
That you'd
you know?
enjoy. Right.
So-
So,
But
All
yeah,
right, man.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for your time, bro. Appreciate it. Thank you. Much love to you guys. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.